Morning, Joe.
Here it is.
Good
So
afternoon.
let me read the letter from the governor for the record. February 10, 2021, Executive Council, Council Chamber, State House, Boston, Mass. Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Sharon F. Lalli to the position of Associate Justice of the Falmouth District Court. Submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Charles D. Baker. The vice is the Honorable Kevin J. Cunningham. With that, we will start the proceedings. And do we have Judge Kelly? Oh, there she is. Okay. The first witness is the Honorable Judge Angel Kelly, Associate Justice of the Superior Court. Just completed the top judge assignment in Brockton for the last 5 years and led the court through the COVID down there in Brockton. She did a great job. Judge Kelly, we'll hear from you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Sharon Lalli. I never thought I'd come before the council again, and quite honestly, I would not if it was not for Ms. Lalli. This explains my appearance by Zoom rather than being with you in the council room. But I'm just joking with that. The reason why I'm not there with you today is because we had a trial this morning. My initial thoughts about Ms. Lalli becoming a judge is it is long overdue. It's been an honor to work with Ms. Lalli over the years. I told her several times she will be a far better judge than me. Ms. Lalli is the consummate professional. I cannot think of anyone more qualified and compassionate. Lately, I've been giving a lot of thought to the best qualities of great judges, and those include integrity, judicial temperament, empathy and compassion, knowledge of the law, management of a courtroom, decision-making skills, respect for the rule of law, and most of all, a commitment to justice. Some of those qualities judges can learn, but some of them are far more difficult to learn and involve the heart of one's character. I must tell you that Ms. Lalli has all the right stuff. She's the perfect combination of brains, talent, and heart. The number of judges that Ms. Lalli has trained is countless. The public and lawyers often expect judges to know everything about the law and procedures because the judge is the one sitting on the bench. The reality is it takes a team of court staff to make the wheels of justice turn. The guidance and instruction that Ms. Lalli offers to new judges is noteworthy. She does so with such humility and respect. Ms. Lalli undoubtedly has the intellectual capacity. She thoroughly reviews the pleadings to prepare the issues for judges and all catches any corrections required in their judicial decisions. Ms. Lalli is an excellent assistant clerk magistrate. She knows how to manage a courtroom. She works in the courtroom every day and manages the lawyers, court users, other court staff, House of Corrections, and the judge. With all of these moving parts, the assistant clerk's position can be challenging, particularly when managing all the different personalities. Ms. Lalli always treats people with respect and manages the pace and people with patience and compassion. A judge may set the tone in the courtroom, but it is the clerk whom the public and lawyers have first contact with. The security staff and clerks are the public face of the court. I'm very proud of the culture of the Superior Court in Plymouth County. Mr. Robert Creedon, Ms. Lalli, and Patrick Creedon have created a court environment that underscores public service. And Ms. Lalli shows up at work each day to honor her responsibility as a public servant. She takes pride in her work. She's decisive, efficient, and has a strong work ethic. During the pandemic, Ms. Lalli really stepped up to pitch in to get the court up and running again. On several occasions, Ms. Lalli and I have talked about the events of the day, and I've always been impressed with her sense of humanity. She's guided with a strong commitment to justice, and I have no doubt she will bring those qualities to court every day as a judge. In your roles as council members, I urge you to confirm Ms. Lalli's appointment to the district court. If confirmed, she will surely be missed in the Superior Court, but the district court will gain a promising judge. a star for sure. Thank you very much for giving me your attention.
Any questions for the judge? Marilyn?
Thank you. Welcome back. Has it been 5 years? Is it 5 years?
Since 2013 was my last appearance before the Governor's
Oh my
Council.
God.
And
Oh my
2009
gosh.
was the first.
I've heard great things about you. Can you tell me, how many times did the nominee appear before you?
I worked with her on a daily basis. So whether I was sitting in the criminal trial session or whether I was working in the first criminal session. So for a 3-month block of time, it would be every single day, depending on what my assignment was at the time. So we work in the same courthouse together.
Well, key to me is empathy and compassion, and you mentioned that. You saw that in this. You saw that in this nominee.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, observing her, what would you say the greatest contribution she can bring to the Superior Court?
Well, I think there are two. And one is she certainly knows how to run a courtroom. So she'll go into that seamlessly. But she also, I think that she will bring that compassion that you just mentioned to the district court.
Yeah. As soon as I said it, I realized it's a district court.
But she works in the Superior Court, so it's understandable.
Yeah, I know from my experience, the nominees that go to the district court, the majority of them never want to leave it. And they tell me that is the people's court, and they love that interaction. Do you see that in the district court, and this is a good fit for this nominee?
Absolutely, because as I indicated, the clerk's office, they're really the ones that have the direct contact with the public as well as the lawyers. And so that will be a pretty seamless transition for her. The volume of cases that we see at one time in the district court is the difference between that and the Superior Court. The Superior Court having more complex matters. But I can tell you that Ms. Lalli moves much faster than me. And so she will be able to jump right into that and be very efficient and keep up with the pace there.
Thank you. It's really nice to see you. I don't recall that you have come before us since you were nominated, have you?
I was nominated to the district court in 2009. And then to the Superior Court in 2013. So I've been before you twice.
Right, right. And I'm very proud I voted twice. But I mean to say, coming for a witness, I don't recall you coming.
You're absolutely right. That's why I started with, I wouldn't, but for Ms. Lalli.
So that's quite a tribute to the nominee. Thank you so much for taking the time to come. I wish you were here in person, but I understand you had court. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the judge?
Thank you, Judge.
Judge, if this nominee is half the judge you are, she'll be a great judge. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next witness is the Honorable Robert S. Creedon, Jr., the Clerk of the Superior Court in Plymouth County, former Senator and State Representative.
Chairman, where would you like me?
Right over here, the head table.
First time I've appeared before the Governor's Council in this chamber.
Right.
We're going to ask you if you can find your flag.
This room, when I first came here in January 1 of 69, I was the youngest member of the 240-member House. And this was a vacant space with leaves blowing around. And now you're going to hold me that 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman?
We're going to waive that rule because of you, so you take as long as you want.
I'm from the long-winded generation, and this is for the benefit of the council. I assumed on January 1 of 69 that it would only take me 6 months to reform the world. I was one of those young know-it-alls. I was the youngest of the 240. And I filed a bill to eliminate the Governor's Council because I was a disciple of the Boston Globe in those days. And I thought that what was printed must be the truth. I since have learned a great deal. One of my first teachers was a fellow by the name of Sonny McDonough. And unbeknownst to me, my mother had known him. She went to a wake in South Boston and came home that night. She called me downstairs from bed and she said to me, "What have you done? Sonny McDonough is going to lose his job. Do you know what he did for Uncle Buster?" Now, I'm not going to tell you what he did for our uncle, but she says, "You take care of that." Well, I went in and I saw Tommy McGee, who was then the whip. He later became the speaker. And I said, "Tom, my mother is relentless. I'll have to sleep in the garage. What are we going to do?" He says, "Well, I'll have," and there was a certain representative from Western Mass, "we'll have him discharge the committee, recommend next annual session, and move reconsideration in hopes it doesn't prevail. And that'll be the end of it." And it was the end of it. Until at our meeting of the Democratic Study Group, I think it was the representative from Brookline, who later became the governor, wanted a report from me as to the progress of our bill to eliminate the governor's council. And I said, "I don't have that yet. I'll report at next meeting." Fortunately, we prorogued, ended the session before they found out the fate of that bill. But you serve an incredibly important role. I've been a lawyer for over 50 years, the idea that one person, a governor, could put someone in that very, very powerful position, judge, without some kind of screening would be a major, major mistake. So I begin with that. And before I forget, my brother, Michael, who's a retired judge, he was judge in the district court for 20 years. He said, "Don't forget to tell the council about Sharon's temperament." Well, let's begin. I've known Sharon since she got out of law school. She was hired by my brother Jake. And in those days, there were very few female lawyers in the business. And I said to my brother, I said, Jake says, "Let me tell you something. This young woman, she's very smart." Well, of course, there are a lot of smart people, but she's got a real maturity beyond her years. Well, she went to work for us. That was, what was that, 30-something years ago, Sharon? At least. Yeah, 1986. And my dear friend, Michael Moan, who was Mass Bar president and president of the American College of Trial Lawyers, he said to me one time, he said, "I asked Judge Bob Stedman, who was Raj down in Plymouth County, Judge, the governor has asked me to go on the Judicial Nominating Commission. What should I be looking for in judges?" And Stedman said, "Well, to be honest with you, I'd be leery of putting people on the bench who come from those big Boston firms because they lack the background to be a judge." He said, "I'd select my judges from mid-sized cities, a place like Brockton." Well, Sharon has that background. She came to work with us. We always had 3 or 4 lawyers working for us, good-sized operation. A lot of our business was district court, probate, a general practice. And she took to it like a duck to water. And as Judge Kelly pointed out, an incredible work ethic. But the key, I think the key to her, and just like Judge Kelly, I said to Sharon years ago, you can't stop here. You got to move on. You got to become a judge. Finally, she relented and applied. And I can tell you, because you're in a hiring or confirmation opinion situation here, we just interviewed, went through 104 applications for one clerkship, one. And resumes aren't very helpful. Even the video interviews aren't very helpful. Even a personal interview, if somebody's a bit of a actor or actress, the key thing is, do you know the individual? Have you worked with the individual? And I think that testimony would make sense, and that's why I'm here today. My brother Mike said to me today in the morning, he says, every person with whom Sharon dealt with, whether it was criminal cases in district court, and there were many, or divorces, we did a number of those, and Fortunately, I was able, when she came on board, I was able to bail out on doing divorces. I didn't like to do it, and she took it. But the skill with which she handled people, and Mike said this morning, anybody who ever mentioned her, it was always praise for the job that she did. So again, you can find boxcar loads of bright people who are lawyers, but can you find those who have that even temperament? Can you find those who have a sense of compassion? And not to, Sharon's dad is here today, but everything, I'm a big fan of genetics, and no offense, Judge, but I believe your daughter is a clone of your late wife. A person who was saintly, and she verges on that. But she's also not afraid to speak up. She came to work for me, then she had her children, and then came back and worked for Mike Morrissey in the DA's office in Norfolk County. And I said to Michael, when I went into the Senate for a dozen years and was chairman of Judiciary, I said, Mike, I hate to give you some bad news, but she's got to come with me to be counsel for the Judiciary Committee. And she wasn't afraid at times to, I remember one time a very contentious hearing, and I think it was Gardner Auditorium, a lot of people there. And I must have been a little harsh on the witness. So she went behind me and said, knock it off, you're being too harsh. So she has a sense of propriety, but a real sense of compassion. So again, she went from, small claims to the criminal district, superior, probate. I remember one case, we had a driving under, and she said to me, which went all the way to the Supreme Court, she said to me, have you been up there lately? The arrest took place on a playground next to the West Junior High. And I said, why? She said, I took a ride by and there are big signs posted, you can't go there. It's clearly not a public way or a place to which the public has access as an invitee or licensee. Take a look at it. So I did. And she kind of drafted my appeal, because we lost in the district court and then we lost in the next level. And we took an appeal to the appeals court, and the appeals court pulled it up. The Supreme Court pulled it up to the Supreme Court, and I think it was Justice Liakos said to me, Mr. Creedon, what's this case doing here? I read your brief. This never should have been up here. This should have been, your motion should have been allowed in the district court. And then I thought of her, which she usually told me to keep it zipped, because I have a tendency to run along a bit, such as now. But she put that together, and that was a 7-0 decision by the SJC, which she frankly put together. I was the mouthpiece, but she was the brains behind the operation. She did the same thing in civil work. We went up to the appeals court on a deposit case one time on a piece of good-sized real estate. And she's able, her work ethic, I don't know how she does it, but she can put together a brief. It'd take me 2 or 3 days. She seems to be able to do it in 2 hours. And the other point, and I'm stressing this one, in the Senate office where she worked for me, she was kind of she would schedule all the hearings, and we had the most bills next to Ways and Means. But she would organize it so that we could move things along, and she would always remind me that everybody doesn't want to stay here till 10 o'clock at night, move it along. When I got the clerkship down in Plymouth County, I asked her to come back to work as a clerk, and she immediately ended up in the first session, which is our busiest session, and became kind of a mother hen, not only to a lot of the employees there, but frequently you get a judge who has just a civil background or just a criminal background. And I will tell him, look, I'll put Clerk Lalli in with you, and any questions you have, she'll very judiciously and not for a lot of people to observe, explain to you what you ought to be doing here. And that happens frequently, because you'll get somebody out of, like my own son-in-law is a partner in one of the major firms in the city. And he told me one day, he said, I've never darkened the doorstep of a courthouse. He does mergers and acquisitions and makes more money in a week than those of us in the boonies would make in 52 weeks of hard work. So I'm ready, willing, and able to answer any questions, because I've known Sharon Francis since she was right out of law school. She's the biggest loser here today is me, because she's such a valuable asset. But But for the district court where she will be assigned, she's going to be one of the best judges you've ever approved. And I'd ask you to do that. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions for Clerk Creedon? Marilyn, Councilor
Thank
Devaney.
you. How nice to see you. I can't remember the last time I saw you.
The last time I saw you, I congratulated you as an elected official for proving that money isn't everything.
Oh,
You had-
I proved money isn't
I
anything.
remember reading in the Lawyers Weekly what your opponent spent and what you spent. And I think you got over 60% of the votes. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. I have to tell you, I mean, I go back with you. You might not even know it. When you served with my cousin, the late Joe DiNucci, our state auditor,
My pal.
state reps. Yeah.
Way back. Joe, maybe younger folks here don't know, Joe was quite a middleweight boxer. And where I come from, the city of Brockton is a boxing town. And so Joe was one of my heroes, a few years older than I. And Joe was a court officer when I first got into the House in '69. And I could not, under any circumstances, ever ask Joe to do anything for me. I get a bill, I get a cup of coffee. I held him in such high regard. Wonderful man. Wonderful
Well,
man.
I have to tell you, I mean, it's extraordinary, but Ray Amaral, I think it was 1959, maybe 1958, that they were pages together. They were pages together, and Ray is here, and you know, I respect him so much for all his service. But you know, I just wanted to get back to thank you for all your testimony, and I want it to be noted publicly. No, I know that was in jest, but no counselor asked a witness to only keep it to 2 minutes. I mean, we have to hear everything they want to say, and it's not fair to cut you off. So thank you. I was crossing out things that I was going to ask you. One of the things was temperament, and you covered that. Now, when the nominee is under stress, how does she deal with that? Any differently in your day-to-day operations?
Frankly, and in a practice such as we had, and a lot of it was district court, there's a good deal of stress. But apparently, in fact, my brother Mike mentioned that this morning, an incident where he came in the office and he told one of our new employees, listen, I'm going to be very busy. Don't put any calls through unless it's somebody important. Well, about 3 hours later, he came out. He doesn't deal with stress well. I hope this isn't on TV, but he came out and he looked at his phone messages, and there was a message for Bill Weld. And he said to we had 4 secretaries. He said to the young one, the newest secretary, let me ask you a question. Didn't I tell you to hold my calls except if somebody important called? And she said, oh, yes, yes. He looked at them and he said, see this name here, W-E-L-D? Does that ring a bell at all? And she says, no, Governor Weld. He says, well, let me ask you this question. Who's the governor? And she looked at my brother Mike and said, Dukakis? Whereupon Mike threw the phone messages in the rubbish can. And I think Sharon went in and spoke to Mike about easing up a little bit. She doesn't seem to, in stressful situations, she handled it like, she's the most even-tempered person I think I've ever met. I've never known her to be anything but calm.
What a testimony
Again,
to
that's
her.
No offense, Judge, but it's your wife. It's her genes.
We get no respect. But I thank you for coming, you know, because, you know, you have the history. And I have said it before. We have had people sitting in your chair. And I asked, well, you know, how do you know this person? How many times have you seen her, you know, in the court or whatever? Once. You know, that doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't register at all. But your testimony means a lot. I think this is the first time you've come. Since I don't recall the last time you've talked for, I don't remember. You couldn't have. 21 years, I don't remember.
I think
For Gilday, weren't
What was it?
I was for Mark Gilday, yeah. Another person, terrific appointment, same kind of, not quite as compassionate as you are, Sharon Francis, but
That's the magic
good
word with
judge.
me,
Yeah.
compassionate,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming out and coming in person. I hate Zoom, and it's so nice to see you face to face. Thank you for your time, and your testimony means a lot to me.
thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words about the council.
Any other questions? Okay, I just wanted to point out a couple things. When you filed that bill to do away with the council, you were a man amongst many. From 1860 till about 1940, when the governor's terms were 2 years, approximately half the governors that were elected in those years, on their maiden speech in front of the House and Senate, told them what they were going to accomplish. And they said, getting rid of the governor's council. So they failed, and you failed, and we're here.
Well, I failed successfully.
Okay. And just a comment on resumes. Let me ask you about resumes. Do you ever know of anybody that put anything bad in their resume?
And I've read thousands and thousands.
Nobody ever
I
puts,
can't recall. No,
nobody ever puts
no,
anything critical of themselves
And-
in a resume.
And of course, I'm old enough to remember when it was not an industry to write resumes. I mean, in the old days, we didn't even use them, but if you did it yourself. Now there are companies, and I just went through 104 of them. The level of, well, I don't know, we used to call it polishing the apple, but it's frankly dishonesty. That level of dishonesty in a lot of those resumes is extraordinary. And that's the one last, I forgot to say that. She does not like to be in the spotlight, never has. Likes to be in the background just working. But that's, I mean, and the other thing, we could have brought in busloads of people in here to testify on her behalf with whom she's dealt over the years. So I just can't say enough. The only sad part is I'm losing her. And I'm gonna have to look at other resumes to fill the spot.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Assistant Clerk Sarah Jubinville.
We may need longer time.
Hey, maybe
Have a lot of questions.
I do too.
questions.
I got about an hour and a half.
Take your mask off.
Oh. Good afternoon, counselors.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Sharon Lalli. When I began working as an assistant clerk in Plymouth County Superior Court, I met Sharon on my very first day. She immediately took me under her wing and showed me the ropes. She taught me how to do all aspects of the job and to do them well. I've watched Sharon assisting the public at the counter in the clerk's office, whether it's a person who's been charged with a crime, a civil pro se litigant, or an attorney. She is patient and helpful. Most importantly, she is compassionate and listens to people, making them feel heard. Sharon has also shown me how to go above and beyond working day to day in the trial courts, because that is what she does every day. She trained me how to be a clerk in the courtroom my first few weeks on the job, and her knowledge has been invaluable. There was never a time I couldn't bother Sharon with a question or a concern. And I can't count how many times I have run to her with a question about how to do something, and she has discussed it with me until we have found a solution. She is so knowledgeable about the trial courts and the legal issues that come up on a daily basis. In addition, Sharon is always willing to assist her colleagues by filling in a session when needed or staying late when the job called for it. She is well respected and well liked by all the attorneys who frequent our courthouse and by her fellow employees. Frankly, she has been a wonderful boss, a mentor, even a friend, and I could not say enough about her competence and abilities. She will make a compassionate and hardworking judge for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I urge you to vote for her, for this nominee.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Your testimony means a lot to me, Sarah, because you have worked with her every day from day one. And, you know, she probably has seen you, she probably has seen you more than she sees her family, really, when you think of it, the time she put in. And that means a lot to me, that she's a mentor, that she helps others and she stays late, all of that, you know, again, everyone that has come before us has said compassion. And that's what I see also, I have to say. So what do you see working with every day that she is going to be such an asset on the district court?
Well, one of the biggest things I see, which I think is a great quality for a judge, is she really listens to people. Even just noticing her helping people that come into our court at the counter. People often come in and have many issues, have many problems, many questions. They've never been to a court before. And it's part of our job to explain things to them and try to answer their questions so that they feel better about being in the court process. And Sharon does that. And people feel better after speaking with her. So I think that to me seems like something she will be very, very good at. She always listens to people and makes them feel heard in addition to her compassionate nature.
That's great to hear. Can you think back the first day that you started your job and how you met and how, you know, she made such an impression on you?
Yes, because I met her, I think within an hour of coming to the courthouse and getting my, getting my post, my office. And that whole first week, I remember being in her courtroom session, which was a trial session, and has, a trial every week, or at the time it had a trial every week. And she told me to come in, watch the session, and she answered all my questions. She showed me how to do everything. So I vividly remember meeting her on my first day and that whole first week being with her.
That's great. And you see her day to day, so I can't tell you how important your testimony is to me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
In person.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any questions? Councilor Iannella.
No questions. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciated your thoughtful comments. I just want to say, your father, I've served with a lot of counselors, many, a lot over my time. And you should know, and I'm sure you're proud, your father is one of the most effective governance counsels that I have ever served with. He does an outstanding job. And I know
Thank
you
you.
here today, he must be so proud to see you in the witness stand.
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
I just want to concur with Councilor Iannella said. Does a tremendous job, and I know that he's very proud of you and
Thank you.
the family.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, Councilor.
Thank you. It was
Ferreira.
a pleasure meeting you, and I'll concur with Councilor Kennedy said. But it was really nice to meet you. It was nice to work with your dad, and nice to hear from people that work so closely with the nominee. So thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you.
Thank you. Next witness is going to be Attorney Craig Tavares.
I'm sorry, Counselor, he is off the list for today.
Oh, he is?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Reason for that? I'm just
So, anybody else speaking in favor of the nominee? Hearing none. Anybody in opposition? I'll say again, anybody in opposition? Hearing nobody?
I would have let him in.
Hearing nobody, tell us. It's your turn to tell us why we should vote for you.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you all. I am humbled and honored to be sitting before you here today. I would
Can you-
like to take this opportunity to thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant
Can she
Governor
pull the
Polito
mic?
for the nomination.
Sharon, pull the mic over more.
Certainly.
Put it closer to your face.
Okay. I thank Lauren Green Petrigno and the JNC for their dedication and for their hard work. I also thank each of you counselors for your time today and for your graciousness in speaking with me prior to today's hearing. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Judge Kelly, Clerk Creedon, and Attorney Sarah Jubinville for taking time out of their busy schedule and appearing today on my behalf. With me today, I am fortunate to have my fiance, Mark Doheny, as well as my father, Judge Daher. I regret that my mother is not here, but I am certain that she is watching and praying from above. I am the proud mother of 2 children. I have a daughter, Marissa, who is now in her last year of law school, and a son, Joseph, who is a junior in college. Reflecting upon my own childhood, I was born in the south end of Boston. My grandfather, or Jiddu as I called him, was a longshoreman working in the Domino Sugar Factory in Boston. His wife, my Sithu, was a seamstress sewing on the side to make ends meet. I unfortunately never met my maternal grandfather as he died when my mother was 2 years old. This tragedy compelled my grandmother, my mother's mother, to work long hours in the tobacco factory in order to support her family. Despite the struggles experienced by my grandparents, they worked hard to provide their families with a good life. My father was the first in his family to go to college. My mother, although never having attended college, was probably one of the smartest people that I have met and was influential in ensuring that my sister, my brother, and myself all received an education. Upon graduating from law school, I began working in a small law firm in Brockton, where I appeared in district, superior, and probate court. While there, I was afforded the opportunity of performing a great deal of pro bono work. I was appointed as guardians for individuals hospitalized due to cognitive difficulties. My duty was to aid in the facilitation of their care. I found my role as guardian important as I was able to provide a voice to those who are unable to speak for themselves. My pro bono work also afforded me the opportunity to be appointed as a GAL to aid the court as it investigated many child custody cases. After several years in this position, I took a hiatus to start the journey of having a family. However, unlike many other people, my decision took me around the world. I traveled to Paraguay to adopt my beautiful daughter and to Russia a few years later to bring home my precious son. And while my travel was for a joyous occasion, I can say that the road was not untroubled, as I experienced firsthand the difficulties of navigating a judicial system where you don't speak the language or understand the process. Upon returning to the profession, I subsequently worked as counsel to the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And from there, I served as a Norfolk County ADA under District Attorney Michael Morrissey. Subsequently, in 2013, I became the Assistant Clerk Magistrate for Plymouth County Superior Court, and then became the criminal clerk, where I managed the criminal caseload in both Plymouth and Brockton Superior Court. I have served in this position since 2016. If confirmed, I promise you I will work diligently to serve the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I pledge to afford all who appear me fairness and due process under the law. I thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Now's the time the councilors ask questions. Councilor Devaney?
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Counselor.
Very pleased that your witnesses are in person. You
Thank
know,
you.
I like to look people in the eye. Thank you for all the time you afforded me. I mean, with this weather, you just don't know. And again, we closed the diner. It had to be over 4 hours. But I can't express how impressed I am with you. And I just don't say that, you know, about anyone. But what you have done in your private life and in your public life is exceptional. It really, really has. And even the letters that we received, I mean, all tell about you, your qualifications, but mostly they talk about what I look for, compassion and empathy. And I was very glad when you were asked in your questionnaire what you felt were the 4 most important, you put empathy and compassion. That's what I look for. And you have really demonstrated that by what your witnesses have said. And and in your private life with your family. I know that I voted very proudly for Judge Gilday, Superior Court, and I know the chair probably will read some of the letters, but one of the things he said about how you have very busy sessions and how you interact with the judges and the lawyers and parties with consistent professionalism and respect. And from your boss, from Mike Morrissey, Norfolk District Attorney, he said it all. He says he says based on your experience, both civil and criminal law, she's the type of the well-rounded person that you look for in a judicial appointment. And you've had so many diverse legal experiences, and he notes that you work for the Judiciary Committee, and so you're very you're very specialized in judicial, civil, and criminal justice system. And a lawyer that wrote a letter, Rosemary Scapaccio, I think I pronounced it right, because I only know one thing, and my Italian friend here knows that two C's say cha, like Danucci. Okay, so I didn't want to mispronounce Rosemary's name. But anyway, she said the same thing. You have such experience with civil and criminal law, and employed as general counsel, and that you understand legislature, the laws that have been passed. It's important as a judge to know that, I believe, and that you relate to the judicial, civil, and criminal justice system. So as I ask all the nominees, I want to find out your journey here. So first you applied, and you were rejected. And I want to thank you for reapplying, because I'll say it here, and I say it like it is. Lots of times we have a political person that jumps the line. And sometimes we lose good potential judges who see who gets appointed and knows they're well qualified, and they don't apply again. So I thank you for that. So I'm going to get back to that. But let me ask you, wow, is it a year? Wow, how long ago was it that you went before the JNC when you applied? Was it November 2018? Am I right?
No,
right,
I believe,
wrong?
Council, it was May of 2019, May or June
Oh,
of
okay, okay.
2019.
So tell me, for people who don't know, 21 lawyers are given the awesome responsibility by the governor to investigate the nominees and to decide who they're going to interview and who they're going to recommend to the governor. So that's quite a responsibility, because we as councilors only have one person before us. We don't even know how many applied for the position, or allowed to know. So tell me, how many of those 21 lawyers, given that responsibility, were at your hearing?
Approximately 10 or 11.
11. Okay. And I say this not for you, but I say it for the public. 21 are appointed, and 11 vote, never saw you, never talked to you or anything. That's not right. And I know there was a chair of a JNC, and he told those 21 lawyers, if you don't come to the hearing, you don't vote on the nominee. That's my kind of justice. Okay, so I'm glad that you did get through.
Thank you.
Now, when we met, we talked at length about this, about how you withdrew. And I can't tell you how much I respect you for that, because you wanted to be a judge. In your heart and your head, you wanted to be a judge. But it was more important, and I cry parade, so I gotta, that you wanted to adopt children. It wasn't easy. It takes years in a foreign country. And you took off 11 years for that journey, to find the children, to finally bring them home, and to follow up with all the physical interaction that you had to have with doctors because of the lack of care that these children have. Now, I'm going to ask you questions, but I do want to get this out. And you probably won't say it as much. But I am so appalled at the treatment that these foreign countries are giving these children that want to be adopted by American citizens. And when I think of your son, and I think of my 4 children, and as a mother, I had 2 that walked at 9 months. I had 2 that walked at 11 months. Your son was swaddled, couldn't move fingers, arms, legs, 9 months old, 9 months. Mine were walking. And imagine what that does to the development of not moving anything, not able to move for your mind and your body. And so it took a couple of years, and you could talk about that, how long it took to get him home. And there was a lot of intervention that you went through. So you gave up your personal goal of hoping to be a judge. And you gave 21 wonderful legal years that we see here. But there was 11 years that you devoted to adopting these children. And your 3-month-old daughter that was years before that you adopted, she came with medical issues too. So to me, that's child abuse. It's torture, what these children are going through. I really want to look into it. Why is this still happening? There must be some World Health, I don't know, center, something that says this is wrong, you know? So thank you for that, for adopting these children, and they're successful, and you've got to be proud of them, what they've done in their life. So having said that, you, okay, if you want, all right, let's get back to that, to say your journey, 11 years, what you went through before you got back to your legal profession.
All I can say is that I am blessed to have them in my life. They are why I get up every morning and do what I do. I do it for them to set an example. They are wonderful, and they are now both on the road to being very successful, very healthy, and productive members of society.
Right. Well, so now you have, applied again. Thank God you got through, and I thank you for reapplying. So, your legal background is amazing, because you have worked here in this building, and you know the legislation that that has been passed. You've worked on it, so you don't have to learn what is currently legislation. And we talked about mandates, and can you tell us how you feel about that mandatory
minimum
sentencing? Yeah.
sentencing. First, let me preface my comments to the council that I would never legislate from the bench. I would always apply the law as written. That being said, I do not agree with minimum mandatory sentencing. I believe that the prosecution should not determine the sentence. I believe that a judge, after reviewing all the facts, reviewing the evidence, hearing the witnesses, determining their credibility, reviewing any mitigating circumstances that may be in the trial or in the hearing, then after a judge hears all the evidence, he or she should be allowed to use their own discretion to impose the correct sentence. I do not think that it's appropriate for the prosecutor to charge someone and thus that individual, that's the sentence, without any discretion on the part of the judge. So I'm opposed to minimum mandatory sentences.
Right. Now I'm going to ask you about your philosophy. How did you vote on the marijuana law?
I don't recall, counsel.
you know, I have my own opinion because I have, well, I voted no, but, and, you know, I said to you, I have two sons. And the one thing I worried about in high school was marijuana. Things change, you know, it is amazing how times change. The thing is that I have two friends who lost two sons, overdose of heroin, and they started on marijuana. Now, there's a debate whether that is a gateway to other drugs. I personally have seen it, I believe it. So I come from a little community of 4 square miles, and we have 3. We have 3 places you can get marijuana. It's, I guess, sign of the times, you know? So, so again, let's talk about your experience, okay? And what did you learn? Okay, out of all the experience you've had here and clerk, assistant clerk, magistrate, all of those going up the ladder, when you put it all together, is there one part of your legal background that you really feel really helps you to prepare to be a judge?
I would say it's a culmination of all the positions I've had. I believe in every job, I learned something every day. I go to work now and I learn something new every day. So I think it's a culmination of experience that brings you to the point of filing a application to be a judge. I don't think it's one specific event.
I'll be honest with you, I never thought until I read your the questionnaire that you would have all of these cases, horrendous. I mean, one of them I actually cried, and we talked about it. And it was 8 children who were sexually abused, who even got a disease, who were in chicken coops. And not only did you testify, did you work for them to get them a better life, but you followed up afterwards. And I remember what you said to me. It took a long time for them to trust you.
Correct.
I mean, you know, I mean, they had physical and all kinds of pain that they went through, and you followed up and you got them in foster homes. That's amazing to me.
In conjunction with DSS, at the time, DSS. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the thing I see, the compassion in you, that it isn't just a case and it's done. You follow up on that and see how that they're doing. That means a lot. So, you know, all of your life experience has come to be a single mother, to choose to adopt, and to go through all that process for years, from Paraguay to Russia, and all of the obstacles that were thrown in your way, and then bringing them here and making sure that, besides your love, that they got all of the medical care that they needed, you know? So, so I know that things have changed in the court in the last 30 years, and that drug addiction is something that really wasn't looked at before. Maybe it was in Lawrence, maybe it was in Roxbury, but now it's in Dover, it's every place. So now people care because it's in these nice communities. What do you see as a solution for a judge? What can you do? I mean, I have been lobbying for more drug centers, and we only have about 3. And the budget here is ridiculous, what they give to the judiciary. I haven't checked on it this year. It used to be like 1.25% or something. So what can you do when you're a judge? You know, someone's before you, because I know in particular, one of the boys that died, my friend, he tried and he went to drug centers, but they're for a weekend or something. they need a long-term placement and they're not getting it. So again, I'm talking too much. Tell me what you can do as a judge.
Well, we don't have Section 35 in the Superior Court, as you know. In the District Court, there are Section 35s so that a probation officer or a family member can have an individual come in or to be picked up during court hours. Then they're evaluated by a clinician and they're appointed a lawyer. And then the judge, by clear and convincing evidence, has to determine that that person is an immediate threat to either themselves or society. So if it's an immediate threat, then they would go in. I think women go to WOTC, men go to MOTC, and then they would be Men's Addiction Treatment Center or Women's Addiction Treatment Center. And from there, they would probably go down to a step-down program. And at the step-down program, they would hopefully go into some residential type situation. So yes, and I do see, even in Superior Court, I see the judges, I see the probation department truly trying to get these people help. I mean, the problem doesn't go unnoticed. And we see it on a daily basis. And we do see some success stories. We do see some success stories in the Superior Court.
The thing is that, you know, with your experience, I think you can identify with a lot of single parents, people that the system hasn't worked for them. Didn't work for you when you tried to adopt your children. Every obstacle was thrown at you and you prevailed. Now, you have been involved in specialty courts.
No, I have not.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Okay. So what is your take on these? Do you think they're all effective, or some haven't been and some have been terminated?
Well, I think now the drug court is the court. I'm not certain if Veterans Court and Mental Health Court are still functioning. We do not have drug court in Superior Court. That being said, what I like to do is on Court FM, I log in and I listen to drug court because I find it very, very rewarding to hear the success stories and to hear what they're doing. And what I feel that the judges of drug court are doing is they are parentifying to these individuals. They celebrate their successes. They steer them in the right direction. They will give them words of encouragement. And it's a closer relationship. And I think the benefit of that is, and what I've seen with many people who have come in and have fought their addiction and are leading productive lives, is that if they come in and view the judiciary or the probation department as the enemy, that's not the way to help someone. And I think what drug court does, and what I see with addicts who have come back to court clean and sober, they then realize the court's not their enemy, probation department's not their enemy, the addiction was their enemy. And I think that's why a personal relationship that these judges have with these individuals promotes recovery.
Right. Well, I wanted to especially see about the drug courts, and wanted to see if they really were doing their job and was it really necessary. And I looked into it, and I went to a drug court graduation, and I've said this, I sat in the back and tears came to my eyes when one right after another, these individuals from the youngest to elderly who had been drug addicted for years, and what the drug courts have done for them and how they turned their lives around, and they hugged the judge. And I mean, it was very, very emotional. And there is an absolute need for drug courts, and it is effective. So I'm glad that I saw myself, you know, to see that experience, to see these people and to talk with them, you know. So yeah. So do you know you are asked two questions. I've never seen in 21 years any nominee that has expanded and put these things, and I will tell you what they are. The question was, what is the greatest strength of the court to which you are applying? It's 77 if you're looking.
Thank you.
And how would you preserve and improve upon that strength? You said the greatest strength of the district court, is its ability to directly, positively, and immediately affect individuals. The courts, but especially the district courts, respond to major problems in our society. Chief Justice Lalli has been proactive in establishing the drug courts, the mental health courts, and the veterans courts. This demonstrates the court's ability to respond to the needs of the communities it serves. These efforts are not merely confined to the courts. These specialty courts collaborate with community members to address serious problems. Their success is due to the cooperation of judges, lawyers, professionals, and citizens. I would educate myself further on the work of these specialty courts so that I am able to make appropriate referrals. I hope that I would have the opportunity to serve on one of these specialty courts. I never saw an answer like that. I appreciate that. 78. What is the greatest challenge confronting the courts to which you are applying, and how would you address it? They all say lack of resources. That's a given. You said that. But there is an inability to fund many initiatives, and much time is spent procuring necessary funding for critical programs. Good intentions are frustrated due to the lack of funds. A greater focus should be placed on funding initiatives, educating the public that providing services to criminals benefits society through lower recidivism is vital to the justice system. Another significant challenge is providing services to victims of violent crime, especially domestic violence. Victims of domestic violence are often caught in a vicious cycle and frequently request dismissal of charges. Judges need to understand the complicated nature of domestic violence and must be sensitive to the difficult decisions faced by victims. It is important that judges be aware of the rights of the victims and be responsive to their needs. Judges must understand the needs to ensure the safety of victims. They also need to recognize the importance of timely and effective decisions. Delay undermines victims' confidence in our system. And you gave 3 paragraphs for that answer. Most of it is like 2 sentences about, the lack of funds. But then you went on to the opioid epidemic is the greatest challenge facing the district courts. And this crisis steals citizens from us every day. The courts must tap every available community ally in combating this epidemic. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for the courts. With overflowing treatment facilities, it is critical for judges to determine which defendants are selling drugs to support a habit versus those who are preying upon addicts. With overly taxed treatment options, judges must determine which defendants will best utilize limited services. As a judge, I would ensure that I am aware of all community resources available to assist an addicted defendant in their life and death struggle. In addition, the court must ensure that the limited community resources are allocated most effectively. And I don't say that frivolously. This is the first time in 21 years, and I've seen hundreds of these, that anyone has ever given an answer like that. 3 paragraphs. So, this not only attributes to your ability, but to your caring. And that really really touched me. But, you know, you have gone beyond the call of duty, so to speak. You had an elderly woman that you represented.
Correct.
Do you want to talk about that? And they were going to, pull a plug, I guess you'd say, you know,
Yes,
but you were there. And if you weren't there, she wouldn't be alive today. Do you want to talk about that case?
certainly, Counselor. So when I was appointed guardian, we would represent Cardinal Cushion would notify our office or the probate court, and they would reach out to us, and typically it would be Judge Lawton. There's another judge whose name escapes me. However, they would ask if I would be appointed as guardian for this individual. So I was appointed her guardian. I went, I met with her. Thank you. I went and I met with her, and I knew, she knew the end of the road was coming, but her ultimate goal was she wanted to move to Florida to be with her niece, to end her final days there. I did the paperwork, so I was her guardian, and we had the medical certificate that she was certainly suffering from a mental disease or defect. What it was, I cannot speak to. I received a phone call one morning, early one morning, and the doctor said they were looking to suspend all further treatment. I went to the hospital. I stuck around there for a while. I said, no, don't suspend any and all treatment. I realized that after a while, they said she has a shot. She might come out of it. So we continued the treatment. In the interim, she had cats. So I was going over there every night to feed the cats. Well, now I knew she was going to be in for a long time. So it was late one evening, and Clerk Creedon probably, I'm sure he does remember, but I went and got some cat crates, and I made him come with me, and he never forgave me for quite a while. Didn't forgive me for quite a while. I made him help me lasso the cats into the crates, and then I delivered them to a veterinary clinic where they could be housed until she did leave the hospital, if she did, which she did. She ended up leaving the hospital, took her cats, and went to Florida to live with her niece. So yes.
That's remarkable. You know, and we don't see this before us, someone that has had your life experience, that you can identify with these people who have children with health concerns. I don't talk about it all the time, but I had a child born with multiple birth defects, born without a rectum, born with everything twisted. So I know what it can be, but nothing compared to yours, because the serious medical conditions that your children went through, I mean, it's just so horrific. So you can understand people going through those concerns. And I can't even imagine, and my late husband was a firefighter, your house burned down. I mean, when you think of all the experience you've gone through life, and you finally have these two beautiful babies that well, not babies, they're a few years difference, but trying to get all the medical help and all the physical help you can get them, and you had to go in a hotel and you only had the clothes on your back. How long did this take for you to get through this? You want to tell about that?
Certainly, and thank goodness my children are fine. Once we came home and we had American doctors, and they were fine, and they flourished. But to get back to the question, so I shortly after my separation, I don't think my divorce was finalized. I had an oil fire, and so we had nothing after that. Everything was covered in oil. And I tell you, counsel, I was very fortunate to have my family as a backstop. It made me realize and take pause that but for my family, I would have been homeless or living in a car for a day or two till the insurance could get worked out. So I realized that many of us and many people in our society are one catastrophe away from being on the street. That being said, it worked out fine. It was challenging. And I tell you also, counselor, that I was fortunate that we were in a hotel room and my children varied in age. There's 5 years between them, 5 and change. That being said, you can understand the struggles of a family trying to live in a hotel room. One wants the TV on, one wants the TV off. One wants this, one wants that. So we alternated. One night, one of my children would sleep at my parents' house, the other night, and we would alternate. So there was only one child with me at a time. But it makes you very cognizant as to how fortunate you are. So yes, it was unfortunate what happened to me, but I think ultimately I was very blessed.
It's just amazing. And, you know, you've had a lot of horrific cases, but that one with the 8 children sexually and physically abused, they got AIDS, they were kept in chicken coops, and you fought to, you know, to remove the parental. I just can't even imagine. But the time that you took to win their trust afterwards, you know, it just is amazing, you know, how far you have gone with this. The other thing is that I thought was great that you got involved in the immigration of adopted children from other countries. And can you tell us about that organization, how you got involved? You were there when they were adopted?
Yes, Clerk Creedon and Judge Chin, it wasn't the naturalization of adopted children, it was just the naturalization process.
Oh, okay.
There were many people that had tried for years. Judge Chin, who's now retired, really choreographed it. Clerk Creedon was part of it, and I had a minor role, but it was very rewarding in just organizing the speakers and then going and then staying with Clerk Creedon to sign the necessary documents after they each took their oath.
Right. Now, domestic violence. I'm very concerned with this pandemic. I'm concerned I've talked to even the Lieutenant Governor, and I've asked them, but I heard them today and they didn't say it, to give a telephone number for people to call. They should they're on TV almost every day. They should be saying that. Now, I'm mostly concerned about the children, because if a child is being abused and they go to school, which they're not in school, maybe they'll tell the teacher, or the teacher will see a scratch or something, and we don't have that. We can't protect the babies. And from what I'm seeing, the numbers have gone down. The numbers of abuse isn't going down. It's just that we don't know. I mean, we've got people that are out of work, they have mental issues, they're drug addicts, they're not good people. And they're the guardians for these children. So I don't know, you know, what we can do about that, but that to me, out of everything that's happening, and I have 2 of my 4 that are out of work, but I'm thinking that aside, I'm worried about, you know, that particular area of abuse. I don't know. Now, you've been involved with domestic violence. Do a lot of them get dismissed? Maybe the wife is afraid or whatever?
I will tell you, Counselor, I mean, I certainly did some 209As when I was in private practice in the 80s and early 90s. That being said, what we generally see now in Superior Court would be violations of the order, and unfortunately and horrifically, either the individual, for the sake of argument, I'll say the woman, is severely injured or has been killed. So that's what we see in Superior Court.
Yeah. Would there be any reason for you on the bench to turn off your recorder?
Never.
Isn't that a violation?
I believe so, but I know whether or not it is a violation, it would never occur in my courtroom.
Okay.
If I'm confirmed.
Okay. If you had 2 different people before you, separately, of course, one is an American citizen, one is illegal alien, how do you deal with the 2? Do you deal the same? Because we had someone, I believe in the Salem court, who said to an illegal criminal who had been a big drug dealer for years and had been deported and keeps coming back. And he said, if you were an American citizen, I'd put you in jail. But you're not an American citizen, and you have been providing for your family. Can you imagine how outrageous? I heard the tape, I'm not making it up. He said that, providing for your family. And he gave him 2 years probation. So that's why I asked that. You know, that's a double standard to me. That's not justice. Do you see any validity in that?
I can't speak to what the judge did. I can tell you, justice is blind, and I would always be fair and appropriate and even-handed. But justice is blind. There's a reason why justice is blind. It's so everyone is treated fairly and the same.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting because I don't know Brockton, okay? And you said that when you returned to Brockton, it was quite different as an assistant clerk in
I
a
did.
Superior Court.
Correct.
Can you tell us about that? I'd like to be educated on that.
I tell you, I see more diversity, or perhaps I've been exposed to more people. It's a beautiful tapestry. I did see the problems in Brockton that are occurring throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that's the opioid epidemic.
Yeah. Well, I think that our society has changed so much in the last few years. It's much different for a judge sitting now and what will be brought before you than someone 20 years ago. There isn't, I don't think there are cases you can look at. I mean, when you talk about a gay couple and they get divorced, who gets a child, all of that, eggs frozen, you know, one wants them destroyed, one wants to keep them. How do you, I mean, that probably doesn't come before the district court, those kind of issues, do they?
I don't believe so, counsel,
Yeah.
but I certainly can't speak.
Yeah.
I haven't.
But now, violations of 209A,
Mhm.
okay. How do you decide whether that person is being truthful about the accusation?
How the victim is being truthful? Well, you certainly have to assess credibility. You have to listen to the victim, and in every case, you have to use your common sense and life experience to see what the facts are. But if there's no reason for them to be near each other, then there should be no abuse and stay away. Are you talking about the extent? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand your question, Counselor. Are you talking about the extending a 209A?
I like what you said about, you know, we know the greatest challenge is the opioid problem, and you said that you will ensure that all the communities are providing the services for that addiction. I like that.
Thank you.
You know, I don't see that. Now, about your writing that you presented,
Oh, yes.
and we talked about this,
Yes.
and rather than giving names, you know, sometimes people X them all out.
Correct.
So that's okay. So tell me about that particular case. Attempted murder.
It was allegedly, in a nutshell, there is such thing as judicial immunity, although it's acknowledged that immunity primarily is in the executive branch. In a situation like this, and I actually believe Judge Kelly had a case at one point where she did use judicial immunity. In the facts of this case are a bar fight, two brothers, and another individual. The bar fight ensues. The brothers indicate, one of the alleged victims indicate that it was armed assault, I think with intent to murder, and as proof thereof, the coat was slashed. A witness who was attempting to break up the fight and assaulted one of the alleged, one of the alleged victims, who assaulted one of the alleged victims, saw that one of the alleged victims actually sliced his own coat. So now comes the issue of there's exculpatory evidence that's not cumulative, that is this witness's testimony that he saw it was not the defendant who sliced this individual's coat. So he has however, he has a Fifth Amendment privilege not to testify in that in the police report, he struck the alleged victim. So the executive branch failed to grant immunity to this witness. So the court, although there was no constitutional right for every defense witness to have immunity, the court was going through, thinking about what it should indeed do, and what it found is, and to use the court's words, found a less draconian approach. And that was in allowing the police report to come in as an exception to the hearsay rule. So the jury was allowed to see the police report indicating that this individual saw one of the alleged victims slice their own coat.
No, I was very impressed with that.
Thank you.
First of all, I like the idea that you have been a criminal clerk. I like it that you have 50% civil, 50% criminal. And I have said it many times. I'm concerned when we have a nominee that is not, as an attorney, had one criminal case. Okay, so my opinion, I believe if you have never had a criminal case as a lawyer and you become a judge, you're going to be timid on giving the correct sentence because you've had no experience as a lawyer. I don't know whether you agree with that, but I feel very strongly about that. And I feel confident in you that you have had that much experience, and you've had egregious cases. You really have. And, you know, you've had so many jury cases and so many non-jury. I mean, you know, I could go on with this, and it's just unbelievable that I'll tell you, I never expected to see your resume like this. Absolutely. When I just saw, you know, the letter from the governor, you know, and so I said, oh, assistant clerk magistrate, you know, to be a judge. But I'll tell you, you knocked it out of the park.
Thank you, Counselor.
And thank you for coming back after 11 years to pursue that dream. And, you know, your children must be so proud of you, your father, everyone. And I can't tell you how proud I am that that you have applied, that the governor has appointed you, and you will be a judge, and I'll be very proud to vote for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Counselor, for all your time.
Counselor Jubinville, step up.
Yes, he wanted you to go next.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, so I've known your family for quite a while. I had the privilege of working with your brother in the same police department over 20 years ago. I just can't say enough about your family. I got to know your dad when I was Superior Court law clerk, and I got to work in Boston. And, you know, your brother introduced me to your dad. I just think you're amazing, the things you've done in your life as a person, as a mom, as somebody who, you know, went around the world adopting children, who served the public in your roles, working for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, with the Senate, with the DA's office, the court system. I think you're a phenomenal, phenomenal candidate. I am certainly voting for you next week. I spoke to Judge Gilday today again. He called me to remind me again today. But just every single person that I spoke to says what a charming, wonderful person you are. And I would have to concur with the senator that I think you take after your mom. So, but congratulations. I think you're going to be an amazing judge, and I look forward to voting for you next week.
Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from Counselor Paul DePalo.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
It's a
Counselor.
pleasure to see you here. You know, we've certainly heard about the compassion we want to see in judges demonstrated in your professional experience and your life experience as well. And we've heard about the diversity of your experience from civil to criminal and the diversity of clients you've served. And that all speaks very well to your nomination. So I just wanted to hit on 2 points. And the first is when you and I spoke, we talked about, and it's come up this morning, some of the context of the folks who would appear before you in district court. You know, the backgrounds they come with, especially the folks who enter the system as kids in the juvenile system, oftentimes dealing with trauma and abuse at that point, really desperate for support and services, mental health issues, and often from disadvantaged communities too. And then as they age, they may very well end up before you in district court. We also talked even about brain development, continuing into the early 20s. So, I wanted to ask you, against that backdrop of the context of the folks you're seeing, how would you balance in exercising your discretion, rehabilitation, deterrence, and punishment?
I will tell you that foremost in any judge's mind must be public safety. That being said, district court is a court of second chances. I believe in rehabilitation, and we've seen many individuals who are on the right track. They're getting rehabilitated and they fall off the wagon. So, and keeping the public safe does not necessarily mean keeping them incarcerated. What it can mean is certain conditions on their release. And a judge has many tools in his or her tool belt to keep society safe and allow this individual to function in society, maybe go to work, to attend programming, to get drug tested. So I believe in rehabilitation. I do.
And I appreciate that pragmatic approach to the discretion you'd have. And then the other point that I don't think has come up yet, but you and I also discussed, the racial disparities that we know exist in our justice system in Massachusetts, whether, as demonstrated in the Harvard study, and even in some of our observed experiences. So obviously no judge is going to come in and address systemic issues by him or herself, but could you speak to what you think the role of a judge entering the system at this point could be in addressing some of the systemic disparities that we see, and maybe even in addressing and acknowledging potential implicit biases that we all might bring to the table?
I believe there is implicit biases in sentencing. The study did indicate that African Americans and Hispanics are far more likely to be incarcerated for the same offense as their white counterpart. That mandatory minimum sentencing does indeed promote primarily when there's mandatory minimum sentences, they were used primarily towards African Americans or Hispanics and not their white counterpart. So I think as we reduce the mandatory minimum sentences, I think that's huge. I think on a daily basis, when we see racism, we have to confront it.
And so as a judge, I guess, do you think that these are issues that among the many other important ones we spoke about this morning that you would keep at top of mind and be sure that's part of the dialogue within the system?
Absolutely, Counselor.
Well, I appreciated your time speaking with you and your time this morning. So thank you.
Counselor Hurley.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It was a pleasure speaking to you the other day. And as I indicated at that time, I received some calls in support of you and also checked you out. And thought you had a great application and a great background and really a good philosophy as it relates to justice in the court system. One question I do have is, how much experience have you had with 209As and abuse complaints?
I can tell you, Counselor, I did when I was practicing in the late 80s and early 90s. And now, unfortunately, when they come before the court, it's generally a horrific situation.
In terms of prosecution for violation?
Yes, because it's been a violation and generally there's injury or death that's been related to a violation.
And I'm talking about issuance of a 209A, because you're going to have to be doing that as a district court judge.
Correct.
More often than you'd probably like. It's a difficult part of the job. Having done that for 20 years, I can tell you that. In any event, what it comes down to is issuing a restraining order initially, and then having the 10-day hearing. When the matter comes back in for the 10-day hearing, do you approach hearing both sides and basically doing a trial de novo as it relates to whether or not that restraining order is going to continue in existence?
I do believe in hearing from both sides. I do. I mean, you certainly, and if the, unless there's some concern about having them near each other in the same room, or there could be some intimidation factors where the victim may not want to speak because of fear or intimidation. So I think you'd have to be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you. And what do you think of the Superior Court being able to review the bail set by district court judges, now that you're going from Superior Court to District Court?
We get quite a few of them. I would say quite frequently they remain the same. They're not reduced. On occasion, they're increased. So, I mean, I see them, but it's certainly their right, and if they choose to do it, then they can take it up for a bail review.
Right. Except as a district court judge, you don't like to see your
Of course.
bails reduced, to say the least. Well, we had a good talk the other night, and I think you're going to do a great job. I thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley. Councilor Duff.
Oh, here I am unmuted. How are you doing, everyone over there in Boston?
We're
Can
trying.
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you see me? Is the video
No.
up?
Coming in now.
It's-
Nope,
Okay.
that's very early. You got switch screens.
Excuse me. I don't know why the video's not working.
Now we
There
can
you
see
are.
you.
There you
Anyway,
are.
all right, there we go. So good to see you, attorney. And thank you for all your time. I really just want to ask you one question because I think Council Devaney has really put you through the steps already. Excuse me. Can you share with me any knowledge or experience without divulging any personal information about clients or anybody else? Excuse me, of your experience working with people who have special needs, such as people on the spectrum with autism, Asperger's, or anything that falls into that category. Have you ever encountered any clients or folks in your life like this? And how do you think it would prepare you for being a judge?
I will tell you, Counselor, that of course we have the court clinicians to determine if someone's competent to stand trial or criminal responsibility. But I think what we see more often is individuals who are struggling with mental health issues. And I think it's imperative for a judge to be able to have that evaluated. Therefore, and the defense counsel is wonderful about filing motions for a psychiatrist or psychologist to determine exactly what cognitive level that individual is functioning at. And I make it a point to allow that motion. The judges have given me authority to allow that motion immediately. I get it to back out immediately to defense counsel. And then the judge, he or she, when they're making their decision, they can have an evaluation, which it's not going to rise to the level of not competent to stand trial, or not to the level of not criminally responsible. What it does is it gives a judge the full picture, and that fact can be a mitigating factor when a judge considers sentencing.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll be frank, I have no other further questions. I think my fellow counselors have covered most of the bases that I would have asked you about. And I thank you for your application and appearing here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Duff.
Thank you, Councilor Duff. Councilor Iannella.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions. We had a lengthy conversation last week. I was impressed with the folks that you brought in today. Have a lot of respect for them. It was great to see your father. Again, he was one of the finest judges of the housing court that we've ever had. He's got quite the reputation. I think you're going to be a great addition to the court system, and when your name comes before the council next week, I'll be more than happy to support you.
Thank you, Councilor Iannella.
Thank you, Councilor Iannella. Councilor Kennedy should be here in a minute. Let me just take this time to indicate to you, you know, I've known you quite a while now, and I've seen you in courtrooms in the Common and Brockton, and the way you handle the people that come into the courthouse. And you've had some great witnesses here today that talked a lot about how dedicated you are to our judicial system. So I think you're going to make a wonderful judge because you have two of the greatest qualities, in my view, common sense and compassion.
Thank you,
And
Councilor.
so I don't have any more questions for you. And we'll just give it 1 minute to see if
Councilor Kennedy did indicate to me that he had no questions,
Oh, okay.
Chairman.
And then we will, with no questions for Councilor Kennedy. I also want to indicate to you that we received a letter from Mark Gilday, Associate Judge of the Superior Court, a letter from Michael Morrissey, the District Attorney in Norfolk County, and Rosemary Scarpiccio, all indicating their high support of you and the qualities you have. So those will go into the council file down in the office, and they'll be there. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for your time.
Joe, good to see you today, by the way.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Lieutenant Governor, we're live and ready to go when you are.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for the delay.
Can't hear us.
No sound, Governor.
Okay, well,
Can't hear you.
Councilor Hurley.
We can't hear you.
Silent.
I can hear you.
Easy.
This is why I hate Zoom.
Okay,
Governor, you can hold up notes and we'll vote.
Joe.
All set? Banging. Thank you.
Can you hear her at all?
we hear you.
Only when they focus on us.
They can see us.
Sometimes. Not all
We
the
can
time.
see you. We can hear you. I'm
You can hear
joined
very
here
faint.
by Councilor Hurley and Councilor Duff. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We call our order. I'd like to start our prayer and pledge today by calling on Councilor Hurley.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a prayer for all of those of us who have lost our health, our peace of mind, our housing, our financial security, a loved one, our dreams, our talents, our initial zeal, our sobriety, our faith, our self-respect, our perspective, our innocence, our independence, peace within our families, civil peace, our trust in others, our virtue for our home. In this time of unprecedented death, I also offer prayer for the 500,000 people who have lost their lives to COVID. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley. I'd now like to call on Councilor to request consent for the financial warrant.
Who did she call on?
Councilor Duff.
Oh, so moved, Governor.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I recognize Councilor Ferreira for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace.
Don't move, Governor.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I recognize Councilor Iannella for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of John E. Garland. to the position of Associate Justice of the Boston Municipal Court.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve John Garland as an Associate Justice of the Boston Municipal Court.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
Excellent.
Okay. We may begin the roll call.
Counselor Iannella,
Yes.
Counselor Duff,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor DePalo,
Yes.
Counselor Hurley,
Yes.
Counselor Ferreira,
Yes.
Counselor Jubinville,
Yes.
Counselor Devaney,
Marilyn?
Yes.
8-0, Governor.
Okay, I thank you very much. I appreciate work, and I know you have a hearing underway today. Be safe, be healthy, and Councilor Hurley, thank you for acknowledging those who have been lost to COVID. I appreciate everyone's prayers and acknowledgement of the devastation COVID has caused to individuals and families, businesses, and people across our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.